Namo Buddhaya. A couple of days ago, when I was reading the Dhammapada, I came across this wonderful verse from the Buddha. This is from Dhammapada, verse number 290. The Buddha says, "If by renouncing a lesser happiness, one may realize a greater happiness, let the wise man renounce the lesser, having regard for the greater." Now, this simply says, if you seek a greater happiness in your life, you need to be brave enough to let go of the lesser or the cheaper happinesses in life. Now, this made me thinking this can be applied to any area of our life. Whether you are a student who is studying to achieve a greater happiness or a greater achievement in your education life, there are certain things that keeps you away from that achieving it. Sometimes those things can be some pleasurable things, like watching movies, like scrolling on social media. But when it comes to it, like superficially, when we look at it, in the beginning, it's very enjoyable. It has its own entertainment. But the problem is it takes the valuable time from us. It steals the valuable time from us so that we waste time for a cheaper happiness. And what we miss is a greater happiness in the future that is yet to come. So the Buddha says, if you seek a greater happiness in life, you need to be brave enough to let go of the cheaper happinesses that keeps you away from achieving that greater happiness. Now, this is applicable for the monk's life as well. This is why we become monks, right? As monks, we show that we need to seek a greater happiness in life, because as humans, what we seek in life is always happiness. But for a monk, he thinks that I need to achieve something greater than the normal happiness, right? A peace that is beyond from the normal peace in the world that we talk about. But to do that, we realize that it is not possible, or it is really, really difficult to be with the other cheaper happinesses in life, so that we need to let go of them to seek something greater. And that is what even the Buddha did, right? So many people complain that why Gautama, the Siddhartha Gautama, let go of the lay life or the material life. Why did he ran away from the life so that he become a monk? It's not about that he ran away from the responsibilities. It's about he understood that one cannot achieve the greater liberation in life or the greater peace in life, which is nirvana, by staying in this household life. So that he let go of that household life and became a monk. And he started to seek the spiritual path. And he found the nirvana and he found the liberation. And also, he didn't stop from that. He came back to the palace and he helped everyone who was in the palace in his life to achieve the same state of peace. So that if one seeks a greater happiness in life, right, we need to be brave enough to let go of that cheaper happinesses that we are being busy and that steals our time in our life, right? Sometimes it can be a toxic habit that you have, right? For an example, in a toxic habit, it is really, really easy and it is really, really enjoyable in the beginning, but it makes your life so much difficult after. And that is why they say that if you do what is easy today, your life will be difficult tomorrow. And if you do what is difficult today, your life will be easy tomorrow. And that is how the world works, right? For a toxic habit, it is very easy to do, but it makes our life so much difficult. But for a good habit, it is really, really difficult to practice, and it is really, really difficult to make it a habit, but it makes our life so much easier after. Okay, it can be applied to any area of your life. Like, let's talk about the spiritual life. Okay, usually when we become monks, it was really difficult to be disciplined, right? Once you become a monk, first of all, you become a novice monk, and you have 10 disciplines to practice. Right? And after staying as a novice monk, you become a higher ordained monk. And then you get Suddenly your precepts and your disciplines reach up to 227 disciplines. And it was really, really difficult to be disciplined. But once you learn, once you practice, once you dedicate your time and energy to be disciplined, it makes your life so much easier. And after some time, you realize that all these disciplines are made for your life to make it easier and make it so much free and make your life so much independent. Okay, so that is why we should believe that we should attain the freedom through discipline, right? Through hard work. So now take a look at your life. What are the things that keeps you away from achieving the greater achievements in your life or greater happinesses in your life? And be brave enough to say no to them, right? When you say no to them, it buys you so much more time that you can focus on what really, really matters. So keep this little advice in your mind, and let's meet with another video. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. If you take a healthy seed and plant it in an infertile pot or infertile soil, what will happen to the seed? Slowly by slowly, it will start to die. It will never grow. The problem was not in the seed. The problem was in the environment. Same goes with our life. Although we are good people, although we have good qualities inside us, the environment or the people around us can affect the good qualities and can affect our inner values. And that is why in Buddha's teachings, the biggest amount of focus is given for the people who we associate. At one time, Venerable Ananda asked from the Buddha, says to the Buddha, I think half of this Buddhist practice depends on who we associate, or half of the Buddhist practice depends on good friends. Then the Buddha said, Ananda, do not say that. Ananda, the full Buddhist practice, the fullest Buddhist practice depends on, the whole Buddhist practice depends on having good friends and having better friends. In Buddhism, we call them Kalyana Mitta, the noble friends. So who are noble friends? Noble friends are the friends who they direct you to do good things and to be a better person and to cultivate the inner values like love, compassion, patience, and practicing the Dharma. All these things, the people who help you to develop these things. So in the Buddha's teachings, having good friends around you is considered as a blessing to your life. The Buddha says this in Mahamangala Sutta. The Buddha says, Asevana cha balanang panditanang cha sevana etang mangala muttamang. That means the Buddha said, do not associate with people with lower qualities. Associate with people with higher good qualities. Okay, having a good association with people who have higher values and higher qualities will help you to improve in your life. And that is why in the Buddha's teachings, a major focus is given to the people who we associate. Even in the monks community, when we are living with monks live in one aim, with the one aim to practice the inner qualities like love and compassion, sharing, meditations, and spiritual practice. When you're being around such a community, it is very easy for you to practice it. Now, when I began the practice of the monkshood, it was a challenge for us to practice these qualities like meditation. For an example, it was very difficult to meditate in the beginning, but we had group meditations. That means our senior monks meditated with us. Okay, we were sitting with the senior monks and we were meditating, and we see from the beginning of our monkhood, we saw that our senior monks are meditating for hours and hours, and that inspired us to meditate. So having and being with a community of people who are like-minded and being with people who can help you to improve is a blessing for all of our life. Now, when I say this, I know the question that comes to your mind. How can I have people around me that are that helps me to improve. Okay, because I live in a toxic environment. Maybe you're living in a toxic environment. Now that is the problem that we most of the other people have, right? And then you may ask, like, I am living in a toxic environment, so how can I find good friends, and how can I find people who are going to help me? Well, I know we don't get the exact environment that we expect all the time. There will be always toxic people around us. There will be always unfavorable environments around us. Okay? But from time to time, we get into contact with people with better qualities and better people and with higher values. And do not lose that association. Connect with them, be with them, inspired, get inspired with them, and then associate. Keep associating those people from time to time. The more you associate them, the more you develop the inner qualities. It's something like this. If you grow a plant in a little pot, right? For an example, if you take a bonsai plant, it grows in a little pot, right? So the environment is limited, the soil is limited. Okay, so what happens to the tree? It doesn't grow much. Okay, it starts to grow slowly. But because of that is because of the environment, because that is because the roots are stuck in that little amount of soil. What will happen if just one root came out of that pot and got connected with the ground? What will happen? The tree starts to grow. Same like that. If you get one connection, just one connection with a better person, or a better person who has good qualities and who can help you, you should not lose that connection, right? You have to be connected with that person, and you have to grow, and that will help you to grow in your life. So then the environment that you live in will not matter to you, because you have that valuable connection with that one person. Okay, and that is why we need to choose the people who we associate wisely, because who we are the people who we associate. And that is why they say that you are the average of 5 people who you associate. Just look around the people who are living with you. Okay, just look around the people who you share your life, and see you're the average of those 5 people who are very close to you. So that is why we need to be very wise and very keen when we pick friends and when we pick people to associate. And if you got just one connection with a person who has better qualities and good qualities, that who can help you to improve, never lose that connection. Be connected with that person and improve yourself. Namo Buddhaya.
So for a lay person practicing in life, we all need to balance this. But how? Ask that wise question. What is it? How? How to be balanced? I would say it is all about what we give priority to. It's all about priority. Right? I will ask a question. Why are you here today? You had work. You had other things to do. Right? You had other responsibilities to do. But you made time for 3 hours to come here and just sit down and listen. Why? Because it was important. It was important to you. The person inside you taught you that, okay, this is important. Put it on the first place in the list. Today I'm participating to this. And that is why you came here. That is priority. But so many people complain. They complain to me sometimes. They come and ask, it's very difficult to meditate. It's very difficult to maybe practice the spirituality. Why? It's all about giving priority to it. See, no matter what happens in life, we eat food, don't we? We eat. No matter what happened, how much busy was the day, we eat food. You know? No matter what happened, we eat that. We do that. Why? Because it is prioritized. Okay? No matter what happened today, during the day, what we do? We clean ourselves. Why? Because it is the priority. No matter what happened during the day, don't you hang out on social media? Isn't it? Yes. Why? Because it is the priority. So why can't we do maybe 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of spiritual practice during the day? No matter what happened, no matter how much busy the day was, it's all about what you give priority to. It's about how much value that you give to the spiritual life. Understand that giving the priority to spiritual life also essential for all of you.
Namo Buddhaya. In Buddhism, there is a practice called Sila. Sila is the way of self-discipline and moral conduct and virtuous behavior. So let's talk about Sila from this video. So fundamentally, all Buddhists practice 5 precepts. These 5 precepts are abstaining from killing beings, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from telling lies, and abstaining from using intoxicating drinks and drugs. So these are the 5 precepts that all laymen and laywomen practice. And on Poya days or full moon Poya days and full moon days, which is a special day for all Buddhists, they practice 8 precepts. And for a novice monk or a junior monk, they get 10 precepts to practice. And for a senior monk or a higher ordained monk, they have 227 precepts to practice. So a lot of disciplinary codes and a lot of precepts and a lot of, you might think, a lot of rules, right? This is a complaint that most of the time that I hear from people who are new to Buddhism. They say, oh, there are a lot of rules, there are a lot of disciplinary codes, and there are a lot of restrictions. It kind of steals my freedom. But here's the thing. Buddhist precepts are not meant to be rules. They are not rules. They are self-disciplinary virtues that Buddha introduced to practice to keep the mind out of regret and to keep the mind more wholesome, to bring the mind to a more wholesome state. So why did Buddha introduce these practices as a sila or a disciplinary, these virtues or moral conducts or precepts? Why did he do that? The reason is the Buddha realized when someone engaged in such activities like breaking a precept, it accumulates bad karma or unwholesome karma. And what unwholesome karma leads to? That leads to suffering or regret. For an example, if someone kills animals or kill living beings, that needs to, he must create a lot of unwholesome intentions like violence, cruelty, and harmful thoughts, right? So these thoughts will lead to harmful results or suffering. The Buddha said that intention is the karma. Chetanahang bhikkhave kammang vadami. Monks, I say, the intention is the karma. So as intention is the karma, if someone generates more unwholesome intentions, then he will accumulate more unwholesome karma, which leads to unwholesome results or suffering as a result. So the Buddha said, it is much better to stay away from these actions which leads to suffering in life. And that is why Buddha introduced sila as a practice, to be disciplined from your body and from your words, to live a life of less regret, right? So most of the time, people, when they commit or when they do these such offenses, or I would say when they do such unwholesome actions, what is the final result? It leads to the regret, right? They think like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe after a long time, they'll think like, I shouldn't have done that. To stay away from that regret, to stay away from your mind complaining to yourself that you're a bad person, you did this bad thing, to stay away from that, the Buddha said, be disciplined. Live a life of self-discipline, or live a virtuous life. That is why Buddha introduced these precepts as sila. And also remember that if someone breaks such a precept, there is not a person or there is not any God who is going to punish that person. Buddha is not coming to punish you, okay? So if someone breaks the precepts, the Buddha introduced a way to make it correct, okay? If you did a mistake, the Buddha said that it is okay to do mistakes. Mistakes can happen, but you have to correct that mistake. Understand that mistake as a mistake, okay? Understand that offense as an offense and correct it. The way to correct an offense or a mistake is to be open up. Do not hide that offense. Do not keep that mistake in your life and hide it and cover up and live like pretend to be a good person. The Buddha said, if you did an offense, be opened up. Tell it to a wise person who can understand you and who can forgive you. Tell it to that person and free your mind. Okay? That is why in monk's tradition, usually in monk's disciplinary codes, if a monk did an offense, or it is called apatti in monk's tradition, if apatti has happened, a mistake has happened, the way that we can correct that mistake is to go to a brother monk or a spiritual companion and to be open up to him, to say that I did this offense, this mistake has happened within me, so I'm going to correct it. I'm trying my best to protect and to be disciplined hereafter. And that is the way that we correct our mistakes. So you may be wondering, what is the use of practicing sila or being disciplined? So in Kimattiya Sutta, the Buddha explained this to Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda asked from the Buddha, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of wholesome, virtuous behavior, which is sila? The Buddha says, Ananda, the purpose and benefit of wholesome, virtuous behavior is non-regret. By practicing sila, it leads to non-regret. And what is the purpose and benefit of non-regret? The purpose and benefit of non-regret is joy. And what is the purpose and benefit of joy? The purpose and benefit of joy is rapture, is more spiritual pleasure. And what is the purpose and benefit of rapture? The purpose and benefit of rapture is tranquility. And what is the purpose and benefit of tranquility? The purpose and benefit of tranquility is pleasure. And what is the purpose and benefit of pleasure? The purpose and benefit of pleasure is concentration. And what is the purpose and benefit of concentration? The purpose and benefit of concentration is the knowledge and vision of things as they are, the realization of reality. And what, Bhante, is purpose and benefit of the knowledge and vision of the things as they are? The purpose and benefit of knowledge and vision of things as they are is disenchantment and dispassion. And what is the purpose and benefit of disenchantment and dispassion? The purpose and benefit of this enchantment and dispassion is the knowledge and vision of liberation. So the whole practice, whole steps leads to the liberation. So one must practice the Buddhist precepts to find the liberation, which we call vimukti in Buddhist tradition. So being disciplined, it will make you liberate. So someone can think being disciplined and having these disciplinary codes will lead to like restricted life, more difficult life, more boring life. Someone can say, usually people say that, oh, monks' life is so boring. They have a lot of things to, like a lot of restrictions and a lot of rules to practice. It is difficult, it is boring. Actually, the monk's life is so interesting and more enjoyable and more happy, because so many things, like you haven't tried this. That is why some people think that this is boring. But this is one thing, one life that one can enjoy very much, and which is very peaceful. So always remember, by being disciplined, you can free your mind. And that is why we believe that discipline leads to the freedom. So that is why in Buddhism, it is practiced the sila, or the self-discipline. So this is a little information about sila, or the practice of self-discipline in Buddhism. So I hope you got some idea about this. So let's meet in the next video. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Now, you probably heard about this Buddhist statement and Buddhist saying that says, nothing is permanent in this life, and everything is subjected to change. Now, this is one of the core and main teachings in Buddhism, and in Pali language, we call it anicca. Anicca can be literally translated as impermanence, or subjecting for something to be changed, okay? So what did really Buddha taught about anicca, or impermanence? Let's take a look at it. Now, when we talk about impermanence, now everything that is around us, that we can see, that we can hear, that we can feel, has one nature in common, and that is, it is subjected to change. That is one nature that is shared with all the things that are around us, okay? From the smallest atom to the biggest thing in this world, everything is subjected to change, and everything is ever changing. There is nothing stable in life. Now, normally when we look at, now it seems like very easily recognizable phenomena and a process, but let's say like this, for an example. Now, there's a cup here, all right? Now, if I ask from you, how does this cup become impermanent? How do you answer? Or then you can say, oh, this falls down. When it shatters, it becomes impermanent, okay? That is one way of understanding and one way of recognizing what is impermanent. Now, what Buddha meant about anicca, or impermanence, is a way more subtler impermanence than what we talk about, okay? Now, the Buddha said, your feelings and your thoughts and your perception and your weave towards this cup becomes impermanent, and it is ever changing. Now, that impermanence happens now, right? For an example, like, let's say now you can see this is stable, okay? This is not changing. This is not shattered. It stays. But our thoughts and our feelings and our perceptions are ever changing right now, right here. So to understand that kind of impermanent is way more subtler, and it is very, very difficult. And that is why we need the meditation practice and spiritual practice to understand this. So how can we recognize and how can we realize this nature of impermanence? Now, the Buddha said the first step is to slow down and to be calm. The Buddha said you cannot comprehend and you cannot realize this kind of impermanence through a distracted mind. When your mind is distracted, it is very difficult to focus on this impermanence. And that is why the Buddha introduced samatha meditation, or calming meditations, to calm down your mind. And in the meantime, in the same time, we have to practice the wisdom through learning the Buddha's teachings and through wisely reflecting on the reality to bring up the wisdom that is within us. When the calmness and the peacefulness and concentration paired with wisdom, the Buddha said that you can reach and you can identify and realize this kind of impermanence. So what Buddha meant by anicca is a way more subtler and way more deeper meaning than the normal and superficial meaning of impermanence. So that is what Buddha meant. So that is what we have to practice to realize and to see in Buddha's teachings. So I hope you got some idea about what anicca is. So add this into your life and try to realize this anicca by practicing meditation and by realizing the true nature of your life. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. A king wanted to write down a quote on his sword not to be too much happy when he wins and not to be too much sad when he loses. Now this king found out that his mind gets too much obsessed when he wins and his mind gets too much obsessed when he defeats. So he gave this job to write down a quote on his sword to his mentor. So the mentor thought for a while and he simply wrote down these amazing 4 words on his sword. It said, "This too shall pass." I'll repeat it again. This too shall pass. See, when we live in this world, there are worldly conditions that we have to experience in this world. The Buddha named these worldly conditions as 8 worldly conditions, atta loka dhamma. In Dutiya Loka Dhamma Sutta, the Buddha explains this, that because the whole world revolves around 8 worldly conditions. And the 8 worldly conditions revolves around this world. What are these 8 worldly conditions? The Buddha explains that gain and loss is a worldly condition. And praise and blame is a worldly condition. And fame and disgrace is a worldly condition. And pleasure and pain is a worldly condition. So these are the worldly conditions that we go through and we experience in all of our lives. Now the problem is not having to go through these all worldly conditions. The problem behind this is our minds get too much obsessed with these worldly conditions. When we win, our minds get too much attached to it, and we forget that this victory won't last forever. And when we lose and when we defeat, when we fall down, our minds get too much obsessed with that defeat, and we think that this defeat, this sadness, this suffering will last forever. But in reality, all good things come to an end, and as well as all bad things come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. So how can we live by not being attached to this winning and losing, and not being attached to any kind of these worldly conditions? Now, Buddha shows us the way to not to be attached to any kind of these things. The way to do that is to simply understand the nature of all these conditions. What is the nature? The nature of all the worldly conditions is they are subjected to change. Right? When you win, it is subjected to change. When you lose, it is subjected to change. And it is impermanent. Simply, you can remind it to yourself that this too shall pass. Okay? When you hit the rock bottom, when you go through problems, when you go through difficulties in your life, just remember to yourself that this too shall pass. This pain, this suffering too shall pass. And when you win and when you're happy and when everyone cheers for you around you, always remember to yourself that this is not going to last forever. This too shall pass. That is one of my favorite quotes that I read recently. It says, when you win, you are not good as you think you are. And when you lose, you are not bad as you think you are. So when you win, everyone will cheer to you. Everyone will congratulate you. Everyone will say good things about you. But always remember, you are a man. You're a human. you are imperfect and everything is subjected to change. Now, this does not say that you should not enjoy winning. You should not enjoy victory. You can enjoy victory. You can be happy about it, but simply understand this winning, this victory won't last forever. And when you lose, you have to remember to yourself that you are not bad as you think you are. You can learn from your mistakes, you can learn from your fails, and you can always improve yourself and always think that this is not going to last forever. This pain is not going to last forever. By simply understanding that everything is subjected to change, nothing is permanent in life, will help you to achieve a happier and more fulfilling life by not being attached to any kind of these extremes. When you win, do not be too much attached to it. And when you lose, do not be too much attached to it. Then you will be happy. Namo Buddhaya. One of the things that many people misunderstand about Buddhism is, I've heard this a lot, they say that Buddhism is negative. Buddhism is very pessimistic. It speaks about death and dying and sickness and crying. Why Buddha speaks about negative stuff? Can't we have something joyful and happy about this life? Well, from this video, we're going to talk about, is Buddhism really negative? So here's the reason why a person might come to a conclusion that the Buddha's teachings are quite pessimistic and it is negative. It is because of the first noble truth. Now, what is the first noble truth? It is dukkha in Pali language, which is literally translated as suffering or stress. Now, these words have deeper meanings. When Buddha speaks about dukkha, Buddha means about deep things about life. But when you look at this word, suffering or stress or dukkha, one might come to a conclusion that, oh, Buddha speaks about suffering, right? Buddha says that life is suffering. But when you look at the life, there are things that we can be happy about life. And also there are moments that we have a lot of joyfulness in our life. So why Buddha speaks about negative stuff? And also the Buddha explains in his first sermon about the first noble truth, the dukkha, as like this. Now the Buddha says, now this, monks, is the noble truth of stress or suffering. Birth is stressful, aging is stressful, death is stressful, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, and despair are stressful. Association with the unbeloved is stressful. Separation from the loved is stressful. Not getting what is wanted is stressful. In short, the 5 clinging aggregates are stressful. Now, when someone look at this explanation, they might come to a conclusion, oh, life is stressful. So that is the reason for so many people to say that Buddha speaks about negative stuff. But if you really understand about what Buddha meant by this, you will find that Buddhism is not negative or pessimistic. It is more realistic. Okay? So why Buddha speaks about this? It is because this is the common truth that we all share in all living beings. No matter what level of life that we have, we all share these things, these truths in our life. That is a common truth. So Buddha saw this, and that is why Buddha speaks about this. So yes, it seems to be pretty miserable, right? But wait until you hear the second noble truth. What is the second noble truth? It is called the samudaya, the origin of suffering. Now, Buddha says there's a reason why we suffer. What is the origin of this suffering? Now, Buddha explains that the reason why we suffer is because of tanha. Tanha means craving, literally translated as craving. But there is more to this word, okay? So why we suffer is because we have this craving and attachment towards things, okay? Towards things, people, and to ourselves as well. So, and it gets better when you hear the third noble truth. The Buddha says that you can end the suffering. The third noble truth is called nirodha, the cessation. Now, the Buddha says that you can end the suffering by letting go of the cause of the suffering, right? I will repeat it again. You can end the suffering when you let go of the cause of the suffering, right? So it is pretty obvious, right? Pretty realistic. Let's understand about it like this. Suppose you have an unwanted plant in your garden. Now what you want to do? You want to remove this. So how are you going to remove this? Let's say a person goes and cut it from the stem, cut down that plant from the stem. Did you permanently remove it? No, it grows back. No matter how many times you cut this plant from the stem, it will grow back. But if you really need to remove the plant, what you have to do is you have to go into roots, dig the plant, and then remove the roots, and then it will never grow back, right? Same like that, if you remove the root of suffering, if you remove the cause of suffering, then you will end the suffering. Not only the Buddha says that you can end the suffering, but also Buddha introduce you to a path where you can end the suffering. And that is the fourth noble truth. It is called the Magga, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, Noble Eightfold Path is a moral and ethical and psychological and more practical path that leads to the cessation or end of the suffering. So basically, the Buddha is like a doctor, okay? So what a doctor might do? He might come to a patient and says, hey, listen, let's be honest that you have this disease. You have to be honest. I know it is painful. I know it is very negative and pessimistic to talk about this, but let's be honest. If you need to cure this disease, you need to focus on it. Okay, we have to talk about it. We have to find a way out of it. So the doctor says that there is a disease. He will be honest with you, and he says, and he comes with the good news, and that is that you can cure this disease. Okay, we can cure this disease, and I will show you how to cure this disease. And also the doctor will say that take these pills and take these medicines to end your disease or to cure your disease. And same like that, Buddha identifies your disease, and he talks about that disease, and also Buddha identified what causes this disease, and also the Buddha comes up with the positive, more happy news that you can end this suffering, okay? And also Buddha comes up with a way to end this suffering. So if you look at it in that way, Buddhism is not pessimistic. It is not negative. It is more realistic because Buddha talks about the truth in this life. What is the truth? It is the first noble truth. That is the suffering. Suffering is the only thing that we all share commonly in this world. No matter what level in this life that we are in, we all suffer. Okay? Wealthy people, no matter how much rich you are, no matter how much poor we are, we all suffer and we all share these sufferings. What is that? Suffering of sickness, suffering of death, suffering of diseases, suffering of aging, suffering of despair, lamentation, crying. This is something that is very common to all of us. And talking about it and thinking about it might not be a negative thing, because most of the time what we are doing is we are running away from this truth. We don't like to talk about it. We always like to forget about it. And also we have found many creative things to forget the suffering, not to end the suffering. Okay? We think that we end the suffering, but it grows back. It comes back. Same like you're removing a plant from a stem. So what Buddha does is, what Buddha shows you is a path to go into the root of this problem and remove the root, remove the origin, remove the cause to end the suffering. So remember that Buddhism is not negative and it is not pessimistic. It is more realistic and it is more practical. So I hope you got some idea about what Buddha teaches you. So that is all for this video, and see you in the next video. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Today it is raining and it is quite misty out here, and it is very peaceful. You know, it is about rain. I have read this somewhere else. I cannot remember the quote. It says, rain feeds two types of people. Okay, rain is the food for two types of people. The first one is the meditator, and the second one is the lazy person. Okay, for a meditator, for a person who likes to meditate, rain is the best food and it is the best environment. Okay, and also for the lazy person, it is the best environment for him as well. Okay, so let's talk about the meditation today a little bit. So what about the vipassana? How to practice it? Now, vipassana gives the meaning, the word gives the meaning that to see something clearly, to see something as it is. Okay, this practice was introduced by the Buddha himself. Okay, so how can we practice it? There's one verse that Buddha explains about the vipassana. It is very nice. And the Buddha says, Atitang nanva gameya napati kanke anagatang. That means, do not run into past and do not hope for the future. Yadatitang pahinatang apatang cha anagatang. What is past, it is gone. And what is future hasn't yet come. Okay? And then the Buddha said, Pachupannanchayo dhammang tattha tattha vipassati. Everything that occurs in this present moment are conditioned. Everything that we experience and we sense in this world are conditioned, that they arise due to conditions. Pachupannanchayo dhammang tattha tattha vipassati. You have to wisely reflect on all those things, all those sensations that occurs in this present moments, and wisely. Okay, that is about the vipassana. Vipassana is all about bringing your mind into this present moment and become the observer in it. Now, normally we react to everything that we sense. Okay, there are lots of sensations coming from this outer world, and what happens with us is we react to them always. Okay, either it is with the consciousness, we consciously react to something, and also sometimes unconsciously we react to certain things. Okay, so the Buddha said, be mindful about those sensations and do not react. Instead of reacting, try to observe it. Do not judge the thoughts, do not judge the feelings, be the observer. Okay, for an example, let's say you got blamed by someone. Okay, and you come home with this mind inside you, all those words inside you, all those insults inside you, and you come home and you sit on the bed, maybe lie down on the bed and look at the ceiling, and you start to worry. Okay, but the reality, let's take the reality of this situation. Okay, now let's say someone is insulting you. When someone insults you, you hear that sound in that moment, in the present moment. As soon as that person finished insulting you, everything that he has spoken is gone. Isn't that true? What you heard, what you heard is gone. Now, what I have spoken before in the beginning of this video is gone now. It's finished. Okay, it has vanished. But deep in our mind, we recreate all those sensations, we recreate all those emotions and feelings and all those words in our mind, and we start to worry about it. Sometimes we start to be happy about certain things. If that makes you happy, we start to be happy about it. Isn't that true? That is the thing. So what Buddha said is, be mindful about it. Just observe it. Do not try to react to your thoughts. Okay, when the happiness comes in, we don't try to suppress our thoughts, and also we don't try to express our thoughts. What we can do is we can be in the middle and we can observe the thoughts. Okay, when happiness comes in, we let that comes in. We let that come in, and we become the observer. Do not react. Not reacting. Just see it arise and see it pass away. Okay, it is something that you watch a traffic by the side of the road. You sit down the side of the road and you watch the traffic. You watch the vehicles pass by. You don't try to stop the vehicles. You don't try to run behind the vehicles. We just try to observe it. We just try to notice it. And we see these vehicles come into our field of vision and it goes away. And you start to realize that every sensation, when you observe your feelings, when you observe all the sensations that happens within you, you start to feel that nothing stays forever. It is impermanent. It has the nature of arising and it has the nature of passing away. Every sensation, everything that we feel in, and everything that we feel in our world is impermanent. So that is what about the vipassana. When you practice that, you can go into a silent place, maybe sit down on a chair, maybe sit down on the floor and close your eyes. And slowly, you can observe what comes into your mind. Okay. And be the observer. Do not try to react with them. Okay. When you see happiness come in, you see that happiness come in and you observe it and it goes away. When you see that sad thoughts come in, you feel that and you observe it and you let it go. That is how you become mindful and when you practice vipassana. When you do that, you start to realize that one thing in every aspect and every sensation in your life, and that is impermanence. Once you realize this nature of impermanence, that is what you call the realization of truth. Okay, so keep that in your mind and practice it. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. If there is one simple word that we all struggle to say, and that is no. N-O, no. Two simple letters, one simple word, but saying no can be the most hardest thing in life to do. Why we struggle to say no? The reason why we struggle to say no is because we have gotten used to say yes to many unimportant things in life. Okay? When we say yes to unimportant things in life, what happens to us? We miss the chance and we miss the time to say yes to the important things in life and to the things that really matters to us. Okay? And that is why we need to learn how to say no to unimportant things and how to say yes and how to be more focused on saying yes to the important things in life. Okay? So the reason why I'm doing this video is because a couple of days ago, I came across this word. When I was chanting, I came across this word in Karaniya Sutta. The Buddha says, appakicho, do less. If you practice the Buddha's teachings, if you practice the spiritual path, or in any area of your life, you have to do less. Do not do more. Now, the society says the quite opposite thing to us. The society says that do more. The more you do, the more you achieve. Do many things as much as you can, then you will achieve. But turns out doing more will not help us to be more productive. Okay, to be more productive in what we are doing, to be more productive what really matters to in life. So that is why we have to master to say no to certain things in life and really be focused on what really matters to us. So from this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 tips that will help you to say no to unimportant things in life and to say yes and to be more focused on what really matters to you. Before learning how to say no to unimportant things in life, we have to understand why we say yes to unimportant things in life. The reason why we say yes to unimportant things is because of fear most of the time. Sometimes it is because of the fear of missing out. Sometimes it is the fear of letting someone down. Sometimes it is the fear of the only one to say no. Okay? Sometimes it is the fear of making the wrong decision. So that is why we say yes to unimportant things in life. And sometimes we say yes not only to the people, but also for the things in life. Okay? For an example, let's say you're studying. While you're studying, you have the mobile phone beside you. Okay? All of a sudden, you see a notification pops up on your phone. Now, you know that you're studying and you know that you have to be really focused on that. Okay? But you pick up the phone and you check what it is. Sometimes it is not necessary for you, but you check it and you say yes to that distraction. Let's say sometimes you plan to learn or to meditate in an evening. All of a sudden, you get a call from your friend and say that they ask for you to come with them to go shopping, maybe go to a party or to go to a walk. Because of fear of putting that person down or letting that someone down or to say no, we say yes to them. Okay, so when you say yes to them, sometimes we miss the chance and we miss that valuable time to be focused, to be more focused on what really matters to us. Okay, what really helps us to achieve our larger purpose in life. And that is why we have to learn how to say no correctly. So here are the few steps that you can help you to achieve that. The first step to saying no to unimportant things in life is to build a good self-awareness. Okay? You have to have a good understanding what really matters to you and why you say yes to certain things and why you say no to certain things. When you're aware of that, then you can easily say yes to important things in life and no to unimportant things in life. So before saying yes to something, just ask from yourself this question: why? Why am I saying yes to this? Okay, before saying yes to something or to a person, just figure out why you say yes to that person or why you say yes to that thing. Okay, before you say no to certain things, you have to figure out why you are saying no to certain things in life. For an example, let's say you need to check your mobile phone. Okay, your mind says to check your mobile phone. Before doing that, you have to ask from yourself, why? Why am I doing this? Why should I do this? When you ask from yourself that question, you become more aware of yourself. You become more aware of what you're doing. The Buddha says, before you do something or before you say something, just ask from yourself that is it helpful for me? Is this thing that I'm going to do is helpful for me or helpful for others? Is it good for me? Is it good for others? When you ask from yourself that question, and if you come to the answer that, yes, this is really worthy of saying yes, this is really worthy of saying, this is really important to me, then do it. But if you come across the answer that, no, this doesn't really matters to me, okay, it is not important to my life, then by all means, do not do it because it steals your time, the valuable time in your life. So the first step of saying no, learning how to say no to unimportant things in life is to build a good self-awareness. The second step of learning to say no to unimportant things in life is to build a good self-discipline. And now this is the most hardest part because it takes a lot of courage and grit to say no. And you need to be more disciplined to say no to unimportant things in life. Because sometimes the things that we say no, we have to say no to unimportant things in life, may be the most enjoyable things in life. Okay? Let's say like we all like to enjoy in life. But sometimes those things that makes us enjoyable will not help us to be more productive. Okay, for an example, let's say you are going to study and you're planning to study, you're planning to meditate, but well, sometimes your friends ask you to come and join to a party. Okay, now you like to go to a party, but you know that the most important thing in your life is the learning process. That is what helps you to achieve more success. The most important thing in life is to build a good spiritual, a strong spiritual base in your life. So then it is very difficult to say no to those things because we fancy of in doing all those things. Okay, so that is where we need the self-discipline, to be disciplined and to say no. This is what really matters to me and I have to do it. Then you have to say no to those people politely. You can explain why you are saying no. Okay, I heard this one quote saying that learn to say no to people without explaining yourself. I would say learn to say no to people and explain why you're saying no to them. Then they can understand why you're saying no. Okay? So then they will respect your time and your values in your life. So that is why we have to learn to say no politely and correctly. The third step is to understand that your time is valuable. Time is the most valuable asset that we have in our hand. Okay? And our time on this earth is really limited. You don't have an infinite time on this earth. We have a finite time and we have to use that limited time very well. So I would suggest look at your time like you look at your money. Okay? So when you get money, you don't spend that money lavishly or to whichever the thing that you want. You don't put that money wherever you are. No, we become more serious and you become more serious about your money. Same like that. Think about your time as you think about your money. Okay? Because money can be earned again, but the time cannot be earned again. You cannot take back the time. It is limited. And that is why in this limited time, you have to do the best thing that you can do. Okay? Be more serious when it comes to time. Don't waste it. Okay? It is the most valuable asset that we have. If you value time, if you respect your time, then you can say no to unimportant things and then you can learn to say yes to what really matters in your life. Okay, so respect your time and also respect other people's time as well. And the next step is to ask this magic question. The magic question is it really necessary? Before you say something, before you do something, before you say yes to someone or something, ask, is it really necessary? Do I really have to do it? Okay, sometimes because we say yes to unimportant things in life is because we don't know that we don't really need it. For an example, let's say you came back home after a tired day, okay, and you say yes to social media. And you scroll through and it steals maybe 1 or 2 hours of your valuable time. In that time, there is someone that is valuable that you can do. Maybe to talk with your kids, maybe talk with your parents, maybe talk with your children. Then you can be more engaging with them and do something valuable with them. Instead of hanging out in social media and wasting that valuable time, just we can do something valuable. Before doing that, we have to ask, is it really necessary? Do I really have to do it? Then you can decide what to say no and what to say yes. Okay? So keep that in your mind. And the final step is to figure out what is really important to you, what really matters to you. Now, the most of the time, the reason why we say yes to unimportant things in life is because we haven't figured out what really matters in life. okay, what really matters to us. So that is why if you have a good understanding what is the larger purpose of your life, what really matters to you, what is really valuable in your life, you can be more focused on that and say no to other things in life that really never helps you to achieve the larger purpose in your life. So I would suggest take a quiet time in your day to figure out what really matters to me today. What should I do, and what is the most important thing that I should do today to achieve the larger purpose of my life? In that way, you will have a good understanding what really matters in your life and the things that don't really matters in your life, and be more focused in doing those things. Sometimes it is more enjoyable doing unimportant things in life, but although it is enjoyable, although it is hard to say no to all those distractions, we have to say no to them, because those are the things that prevents us engaging and achieving the larger purpose in our life. So finally, these are the tips that you can practice to say no to unimportant things and to say no to distractions in your life and to be more focused on what really matters. So finally, saying no can be really hard. I know it is really hard, but in order to achieve a happy life and a calmer life and a more disciplined life, we have to say no, and we have to learn to say no to unimportant things in life. So practice these little tips and then you'll be happy in your life. Namo Buddhaya.